Hello, it's Sabalet here recording the first game that I'm covering during Ubers Premier League 13. So for this game, we've got YBW versus Enigami. YBW is on the team DaReal Drizzlers, and Enigami is on Choice Bandits. So this is the first series I'm going to be covering in this tournament. YBW, very physical offense oriented player, really likes those Pokemon like Tauros, Snorlax. I would say likes more of the classic sets on Mewtwo, Mew. So like kind of a mix of aggression and these like slower paced status spreading teams. Enigami kind of known as the person who brings weird stuff. Enigami loves rap in any tier, doesn't matter what it is. You'll see Victory Bell, Dragonite, whatever from him. But also like lots of counter shenanigans, lots of weird tech, known for like bringing mons that other people don't even consider, like Electrode in this tier, for example. So it's an interesting matchup. I'll be interested to see how Enigami handles like YBW's aggression or how YBW handles Enigami's inevitable one rap bring per set at least. So let's get into it and see how this one goes. And I'm going to be running this on slow, so I have some time to commentate and pausing as we go to talk about some turns. So right off the bat, we have Gengar versus Starmie in the lead. This is obviously Starmie advantaged, at least if it has Psychic, which most of them will. But like it's tricky enough that Starmie might try to predict, and if Gengar T-bolts on that predict or Hypnosis's, it can go really wrong. Still, I would guess that YBW is probably just going to switch out of here because Starmie is not that threatening. A Chansey from YBW. Now, this is not a common Pokemon from him. It's not a common Pokemon in general anymore, but it is a effective sleeper and a decent backup for Gengar. So Enigami also bringing a Chansey. That's not a common thing to see in Ubers in 2025. But hard switching it in, so you presume there's another sleeper, probably an Executor on his side. Don't know if I love sacking the Chansey like that, though. I would have just given up the Starmie, I think. But here comes the egg. Now, YBW could have a move like Blizzard and just go for the crit or the sleep powder miss. It's honestly close to a 50-50, but the safe play would be just go to Gengar and sack it. Goes for it, gets the freeze. So it looks like a lucky break, but ultimately like you have a 25% Blizzard crit chance. That's an OHKO. You have a 10% freeze chance and you have a 25% sleep powder miss chance. All of that combined comes out to close to a 50-50. So I don't blame YBW for going for it, especially with a more aggressive Blizzard Mewtwo. So just pushes it and then gets out to Mew. Mew versus Starmie, you might stay and trade T-Waves, or you might just get out to Chansey because why would you not absorb T-Wave with Chansey? Part of the benefit of bringing a Chansey, even though it's like the most passive blob ever, is that you don't take paralysis on your Mewtwo or Mew a lot of the time, but you do get bullied by physical mons like this. So in comes Snorlax to tank the hit. Now this is interesting because when your Snorlax is behind like this, you kind of have two options, right? Like either you prematurely boom to try to catch their Snorlax before it gets out and equalize the matchup, or you have counter, or you just try to like hopefully get Slam Beam and get close enough to equalizing. But probably YBW is considering booming right here. So YBW goes Gengar as Enigami goes Mewtwo. And as I'm watching these, I am gonna try to like put myself in the heads of the players and why they might make certain moves. But this one is kind of a mystery to me. On Enigami's side, you have to expect there's a decent chance of a Snorlax boom at 46%. And going Mewtwo just means taking 90% on that. I get that maybe you don't want to go Executor and just like give up momentum for free if it doesn't boom, but like Starmie first at least or something. Maybe don't risk your entire Mewtwo. And on YBW's side, I guess the Gengar idea is you come in on Body Slam and then you try to pivot off of it or like click an attack on the Snorlax, get it to 50 and then boom and get out. And you kind of equalize that way a little bit. But it's weirder on Enigami's side. If that was a prediction that Gengar was coming in, that's insane. Like, genuinely, if you thought that far ahead and saw that, then I'm clapping for you. But Otherwise, I'm not quite sure what the idea was. As for the team so far, uncharacteristically like passive stuff here for Enigami with Starmie, Executor, Chansey. Like Executor's not like passive, but me, Egg, Chansey is not what I would think of as your typical Ubers team. You're kind of lacking in offensive pressure here. YBW, same sort of case with Gengar, Chansey. Though like Mewtwo seems to be aggressive, the Mew, we have no clue what the set is yet. Obviously, we know Enigami's last is going to be a Mew. It would be ridiculous for it not to be. On YBW's side, hard to say what it could be. Like all of the elements of his team are kind of disparate. I don't know what it would all go together to make. I guess one thing I'm thinking about as a possibility is like Articuno, because Gengar and presumably Seismic Toss Chansey, you're very ride-on weak. You kind of have a Sand Slash problem too. Like Mewtwo makes up for it. Mew potentially makes up for it depending on the set. But overall, this kind of looks like it could get washed by a few different things, including Rhydon, just depending on how much paralysis Enigami is running. Dragonite kind of makes sense to me. Even like Zapdos makes sense if you're 100% confident that they're not going to bring a Rhydon. Otherwise, you kind of get owned. Tauros would be on brand for YBW, but again, I don't know that the synergy is there. Like Gengar obviously doesn't have T-Wave, Snorlax doesn't have T-Wave, so you have Chansey and maybe Mew, and probably not Mewtwo with T-Wave on this team. So, like, I wouldn't say either player's teams really fit into an obvious archetype. If the Mew is hard switching into Mewtwo, that suggests this is a T-Wave Mew. I'm gonna guess it's T-Wave Earthquake. And if it's T-Wave Earthquake, I'm gonna guess, well, I guess we're never gonna know. I would guess that it was a T-Wave Mew, though, at the very least, and I would guess that means the last would be something that could hit Zapdos, could hit Rhydon, could hit like different things. Not something that can be just walled by one easy, obvious Pokemon, but gets out. Yeah, you probably don't want to stay at one of your frozen and just let up chances to set up. So Mewtwo in versus Mew. When you're Blizzard Mewtwo, I would say this matchup isn't nearly as bad. Like as you can see from the range, it's not likely to 3-hit KO, but once you set up with Amnesia one time, you have pressure even if you're T-waved. So we'll see. Just gets out, calls the T-wave coming in, and that's a pretty good call. I would generally expect a lot of Mews to have T-wave. Don't know if I love it on this when you have Starmie plus Chansey. Like, do you need this much T-wave? I'd rather have some kind of actual breaker. YBW predicting that it's just a pivot and staying in, but nope. But let's see what happens here. Yep, both get out. The YBW says, I'm not going to let you just wake up the Chansey. I'm going to go to Snorlax. And now the Snorlax situation's reversed or not. Another switch out. So I get that in that Snorlax at 46% does just die if Starmie crits it with Psychic or Surf, which we know as Psychic. So it makes sense. I think Enigami made a nice mid ground there. You don't really want to keep Starmie in on Snorlax. So if you get slammed, it's kind of a tie, and you have like mind games around booming. If they switch out to Chansey out of fear of a crit, then obviously you're in the driver's seat, which looking like driver's seat for YBW. Rhydon makes sense here. I don't like love it because even like you only have two T-Wave things supporting it, and now how are you gonna get through this Starmie? Yeah. Yeah, Rhydon does make sense, but I don't think I like Gengar, Chansey, Rhydon on one team. I was kind of mystified by whatever YBW's last was going to be just because I don't like these three Pokemon together. Like, I want to talk about this for a second. Like, you have Chansey, Snorlax, Rhydon, presumably T-Wave, Earthquake, Mew, and a Mewtwo that's probably like Blizzard, Psychic, Amnesia, but could be something else like Mono Blizzard. But like Cloyster bullies the crap out of this team. Um, I don't know. You don't have that much output, and even like Executor bullies this team really hard. It seems hard to play with a lot of Pokemon that are weak to Earthquake, especially if there's like an opposing Rhydon. You're never switching into that at all with this team. So I don't know. It's interesting. I don't think it's like necessarily a bad team. I don't know what YBW is seeing in the scout. Although, like, Gengar is a good bring in Enigami because Enigami brings a lot of rap and Gengar dominates rap, so I can kind of see the logic regardless. Um, so I don't like this. I want to go back and kind of look at how it happened here. So the Gengar pivots in on the Snorlax body slam to kind of try to trick a safe entry for Mewtwo on Earthquake or something, but instead catches Mewtwo coming into Gengar, which makes sense because Mewtwo dominates Gengar pretty hard. And Enigami goes to Executor here, which I just think is a mistake. I get not wanting to play like a freeze war with Mewtwo, but I think, like, I guess what the call here is trying to call out a T wave. But I think if you watch YBW's games, you see that there's not much T wave Mewtwo, and it doesn't really. I don't think it fits this team super well because your only pressure comes from these two. You need some damage somewhere besides just ride on Snorlax because they're not going to last that long. So it seems pretty clear to me it's an Amnesia Mewtwo before it even sets up. And now because you did this Mewtwo is going to set up, it's going to heal itself of that little bit of chip. And then Mew is not going to check it because Blizzard does a huge chunk. Like you T-wave it and then you die. So YBW milking this for everything it's worth, as you should. Yep, there's the recover, because like you can't hard switch in a +4 Mewtwo Blizzard. It doesn't matter what you have. So it gives up the egg. Now the consideration is, do you go Mew or do you go Starmie? If you go Mew, you're telegraphing T-Wave. It seems pretty obvious this is going to be a T-Wave. But like, look how much you take. You take 75. Now even if you soft boiled, you're dead. And I would bet you this is not Explosion Mew. Well, I eat my words immediately. That's so interesting. So Starmie, Chansey, two boomers, and then you run Explosion Mew, and you just have like no physical pressure whatsoever besides this very short lifespan Snorlax. So just to be clear, like booming there for Enigami is 1000% the right play if you have it. If you're YBW, you're never switching out there. I like that boom. Like it's a good boom. What I don't necessarily love is that being the choice for this team. I think this team has a little too much passivity between Starmie, Chansey, and then I guess this Mewtwo is probably a classic Amnesia 2 attacks Mewtwo. And then you just have like all this very ephemeral offense that doesn't actually have enough backing it. So like YBW is going to try to sack Mew. I don't know if I love this. I would double back here because the Mewtwo is surely coming in. If you double Mewtwo, then you're good here. If he doubled Mewtwo, that was a chance to recover it up, and then this game looked pretty locked up. Now, like you have a Chansey, so this is not nearly so bad as Enigami doing the same thing with going to the Frozen Mon because Chansey is asleep. But like even so, I don't love this. I think you could have doubled to the Mewtwo very, very safely and gotten it back in the game and then kind of laughed at the situation. So Enigami choosing to go for it immediately here. I think you have to because this team, again, is just so passive. You don't have any other way to break through here, so you have to take that T-Wave, and once you take that T-Wave, Snorlax, Rhydon just become these huge threats, and so does Gengar because it's not paralyzed. So yeah, like here now you just sack the Mew, because who cares? Sorry to click through that, but like, it's a bunch of paralysis. um, Snorlax booms. I think Enigami probably could have called that out. That felt like a very forced boom. I think like you can't go to Chansey because then Gengar is gonna get sleep again. Like I think you just have to go to your Snorlax and trust. Hmm. Well, if you go to your Snorlax, you lose all your physical pressure. But the opposing team's also mostly lacking physical pressure. Yeah, I think you have to just go to Snorlax and tank that boom. So because of that, I'm not loving Enigami's odds here. Like you can't go to Starmie because it's on 54 and there's obviously a body slam coming. So you do this, now you have to go to Starmie, and now you threaten well, threaten in big scare quotes because what do you threaten when there's a Chansey? So now here's where the threat starts to come in. Snorlax obviously is going to come in to bully this. But the problem is Snorlax is going to lose to Rhydon. Rhydon is going to clean through this. Every time it gets in, there's not going to be much room to play around. And if this gets T-Waved, it's just over. So YBW taking the safe button. I think T-Wave was a pretty reasonable click, but I get fearing that Snorlax comes in and you wave it and you're still slower because of Psychic reapplying the speed drop from paralysis. So this Chansey is extremely slow right now. But Enigami just going for the break with Starmie, and now that it's paralyzed, I really can't see how he ever wins, because Gengar is now going to come in and bully the Starmie, and then Rhydon bullies this and the Snorlax. This should be over. And I'm going to up it to normal speed at this point because there's just not too much to say. Like, YBW doesn't have to do anything at this point except not choke by hard switching Gengar or something into an attack. You just want to keep hitting with Chansey until it dies. Even a full health Starmie is still going to lose this to Gengar plus Rhydon. There is really not much you can do. The one thing that might be an out is if you wake up Chansey and then you dodge Hypnosis and get some other luck going your way, but I don't love Enigami's odds. One thing he can do to help his odds a little bit is you need to get the Starmie back to 100%. And I don't love that. It's like it's pretty inconsequential, but I didn't really like giving up the Mewtwo like that. But still, like now that Rhydon is in, you almost 2-hit KO Lax. Even if it paralyzes, it's pretty hard for it to win. It does paralyze, but I this isn't it either, I don't think. Like giving up Rhydon sub, because this is probably a seismic toss chance anyway. Like you give up Rhydon sub and then you lose. If this Rhydon ever hits, it does. Interesting choice not to substitute. I get feeling like the wake up pressure a little bit, but I don't think that you're really pressured by it. Ultimately, though, like we're just gonna sit here with Chansey. Eventually, like Enigami is either gonna kill the Chansey and then Gengar is gonna come in and T-Bolt the Starmie, or the Snorlax is gonna switch into pressure, and when that happens, the Rhydon is just gonna clean it up. Or at least like keep the Starmie low so that Gengar can break through. Starmie also notably running out of PP pretty badly at this point. Um, so Snorlax coming in there, just want to go back to that for a second because I don't love that at all. YBW has no reason not to keep tossing, and once you toss once, this is now in Gengar range. So like this Rhydon isn't even relevant to winning the game anymore. Even if this Rhydon completely chokes, gets absolutely nothing, yeah, like that. Gengar comes in, T-Bolts, you can't switch out of it, Snorlax dies, and then it just can boom or T-Bolt on Starmie, or you just go back to Chansey and just wait it out because it has 3 Psychics, 5 Blizzards. Now, I think it's pretty reasonable to get out and not risk Psychic crit, so kudos to YBW on not taking risks. I think I would have just T-Bolted because I'm impatient. And ultimately, like the Chansey is almost certainly not going to die to the Starmie as long as it gets a free entry. Even if every Psychic crit and dropped it, you have 5 more soft boils, and it's only got 3 attacks. So we're going to ride this one out, but this is a guaranteed YBW win at this point. Even multiple crits wouldn't kill this Chansey here. So Enigami forfeits, and YBW takes game 1. So moving on to game 2, I wonder how they'll adjust. My immediate guess before we even get into the game is that Enigami is going to bring Wrap. I think it's pretty likely. I think YBW, if he did any homework on Enigami, is going to think Wrap is pretty likely and bring a Gengar or an Articuno, something like that to cut off that inevitable Wrap bring. But we'll see. YBW might also go for a more like classic physical offense. This game 1 had like some tinges of it with Snorlax Rhydon, but honestly, like not as aggressive as of a team as I expect from him on most days. But let's get into game 2, see what they do. We've got a Gengar on Enigami's side this time, and an Executor on YBW's side. Egg, not the most common lead. Gengar, pretty common lead. This is kind of a 50-50. Like, it's 60-40, obviously, for Hypnosis to hit, but... And, of course, Executor can miss. But with, like, first turn Wake odds and stuff like that, I would call it almost a 50-50. So Enigami hits, instant Wake. Hits again. And this time it stays asleep. So, okay, quick getting ahead for Enigami. Here comes Mewtwo from YBW. So this forces out Gengar. You probably double switch on this to a sleeper. No double switch, just goes for the raw psychic and gets a drop at least, which helps a little bit. And another Chansey, okay. So this team's already looking pretty vulnerable to Wrap if that's what it is. And T-Wave from Mewtwo makes me think that Enigami might have brought Wrap like I predicted. And so Sing misses and now Afraid of the Boom. I would think Enigami wouldn't just pull the trigger that quickly because it's really obvious. And let's see, does he burn a sleep turn? No. Okay, that's good. You should never burn that sleep turn, I don't think. So taking another shot at the Sing. Again, misses. This time I bet he stays. Yeah. Because Enigami pulling the trigger that fast is just wasteful. You'd rather just take the sleep on Gengar and free everything up. Because if you miss that boom, it's pretty catastrophic. Snorlax comes in. This is pretty good pressure immediately. But a YBW T-Wave Mewtwo as well. So we've got two aggressive Mewtwo's. I do wonder if this has Recover. It does. So we've got Psychic T-Wave, Recover, and one last move. I wonder, this is probably Amnesialess. And a crit is really big. That's a ton of pressure now. So the Snorlax is pretty much forced out. If I'm YBW, I actually click. No, that was hasty. I was thinking recover there might be worth it, but honestly, like with Snorlax at that point, you probably click boom just to ensure the Mewtwo can't heal itself and keep it at 42. So yeah, on further thought, that was my like monkey brain immediately calling for the call out and the prediction. But no, Psychic is right there. And there it is. And that also like it tracks with this being wrapped that you would just boom the Snorlax and not let this heal. I think this is a little premature. Like I don't love going to the wrapper this quick because there's still 3 whole healthy Pokemon in the Chansey and the Egg that can burn wrap turns. But it's not the worst thing. And ultimately a Victory Bell, it looks like is going to get some pressure because YBW, I would guess, also has a Snorlax, so that's 3 Pokemon slower than Victory Bell without T-Waving and a T-Waved Mewtwo. Goes to the Mewtwo, like bluffs the setup turn. This could be Amnesia, Blizzard, Boom, Thunderwave. But ultimately, like baiting in the Chansey is pretty clever. My guess on the way Enigami builds is that this is probably going to have no recovery Mew and just be like Swords Dance and try to push through the Chansey and then boom something else. Which is, I think, a good way to go about this game from this point. So yeah, like even if you take the T-Wave, you don't really care, but if you don't take the T-Wave, all the better. And there's a Kuno. So yeah, YBW did think about like what Enigami is likely to bring. Now, the scary thing is like this Mew could just be boom and take out the Kuno. So maybe it's just mono Earthquake with soft boiled, but I guess we're going to see. If it switches out, then that pretty much confirms it. Yeah. So plus side for YBW here. First off, this just froze, which is really, really good for him. Other upside, this Mew is walled by Articuno. Victory Bell gets one-shotted by Articuno. Gengar's asleep. And presumably this last Pokemon is like a D-Knight. So like this is a very well-positioned Articuno, especially now that it gets to click agility for free. Oh, okay. So Enigami kind of mixing ideas here. I don't know if I love Gengar plus Victory Bell plus Articuno. It's like there's ideas there, but you also, if you don't call all your pivots right, you're gonna eat it from Rhydon, you're gonna eat it from Snorlax. Um, a Mewtwo with Amnesia can completely dominate this team if it just manages to dodge a couple of T-Waves from the Mews on the other team. Barrier 2 completely obliterates this team. Like, I don't even see what you can possibly do to stop Barrier 2 from running you over. Once it clicks Barrier one time, Victory Bell is not getting there. Statistically, it's going to miss. So, like, very signature Enigami idea of bringing Wrap and also, like, kind of being willing to be 6-0'd by certain Pokemon. But YBW just going to sack Mewtwo here, I guess. Or no. So tries to get the recovery, but then decides, I want to keep this Mewtwo for later just in case. Gives up the egg. Don't know if I love this because now Victory Bell is a lot more open again. Tauros. So Tauros plus Articuno reads as like very, I am not letting you wrap me. Tauros historically very good at stopping wrap teams just because you pick off Victory Bell and Dragonite from pretty high percentages, but here using it to try to bully down the Articuno to open up his own Articuno sweep. And obviously crit paralyze is a great start. You love that. Now here choosing to sack Chansey, and I actually like that idea and keep the Tauros to be able to beat Victory Bell or Mew later. Enigami gets a bit unlucky, but then YBW paralyzes anyway. So ultimately same result. And now you probably go Articuno and just 1v1 this or Mewtwo and recover. Choosing to go Mewtwo and recover, so that's a pretty good idea here, I think. Enigami gonna set up agility and re-slow down the Mewtwo. I don't think I necessarily love this. Even with it being a T-Wave Mewtwo, maybe you just go to Mew and start trying to like but then it's walled by Articuno. Yeah, I don't know if Enigami has any routes here. I think you kind of have to just get lucky with Articuno, actually, because of this Mew set. And I'm kind of confused why this Mew doesn't seem like it might have Boom after all that and not soft boiled, and he just wanted to preserve the HP and not boom it on Kuno. But either way, like, I think this is kind of the weakness of not fully committing to Wrap and running these Pokemon that don't necessarily synergize with it, like Articuno and Gengar. But here it works out because the Mewtwo just paralyzes over and over. But now, like YBW has Mew, Tauros, Articuno, all Pokemon that can really bully here. Going to set up the Mew, which seems to indicate this is going to have Body Slam or Hyper Beam. If it's Hyper Beam, then that's pretty scary. And it is. So, like, now you just heal up. Yeah, okay, no, Enigami you can't do this. Like, I understand the like idea of trying to pivot around and sack something else. But this Mew is just going to click Swords Dance again now, and if your Mew doesn't just win a speed tie with it, the game is over. And staying in, oh no. Okay, so YBW is just going to go to +4 and could just win the game off winning one speed tie. I think Enigami made a mistake with this play. I really don't like this. I think you can pivot through the Gengar, but then you have to go to the Mew and force this out with T-Wave. You can't do this. Like, Mew comes in, and if it loses tie, this is over, and even if it wins tie, it's gonna get nuked. So crit, unlucky, but like the pressure is 1,000% in YBW's court. No matter what Enigami does at this point, this Mew is claiming at least one more KO and probably several. Like Victory Bell's odds of wrapping this down are poor. And that proves my point. But even if that hit, like the chances you're gonna hit enough wraps is not great. And even then, like this Mew is just not beating a Hyper Beam Mew, even with it paralyzed. So Enigami gives up, forfeits. Understandable here in this situation where you have a walled Mew and an Articuno that is paralyzed and at half HP. It's just very hard to win from here. So not sure I love the team idea here. I think it's a little incoherent, although like it kind of, again, like even teams that look incoherent might have some scouting basis. And in Enigami's case, like Articuno is a good anti-physical offense mon. YBW likes physical offense. The logic is there. I don't necessarily love how all the pieces fit together, but I can see the vision. Same goes for stuff like what YBW brought game one with the Gengar Chansey ride on, where like I can see the use cases for teams like these, but I think fundamentally I don't love them, and that's a bit subjective and a little bit of I just don't think this is necessarily how you want to play if you want to consistently win. But works out for YBW in this case. I think it was interesting how people played around frozen Pokemon in this set because I think they conceded maybe a bit too much momentum trying to sack them to get free entry. And ultimately, in this case, that cost Enigami the game. So congrats to YBW on winning this one and starting off 1-0 in the tournament. So that's the end of this set. Since it's a 2-0, every RBY set is best of 3. But I'm going to see how this one goes, upload it to YouTube, and just see how people feel about it. So give me any feedback you have in the comments. If there's anything you think I missed in the set, please let me know. And if you stuck with me through this, like this is about half an hour long. So thanks for watching it, and just please let me know what you think. what I can change to make these videos better. I'm not gonna like do heavy editing or anything. I'm just gonna record these and put some background music. But I'm always open to feedback, so let me know what you think, and hopefully I'll see you for the next UPL video when I cover another set from week 1.